Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat at malugod na pagbati mula sa Future Earth Philippines. Muli niyo kaming samahan sa isa't kalahating oras ng palitan ng mga kaalaman na tiyak na kapupulutan ng aral at karunungan. At ang ating pong panauhin sa hapon na ito ay isang kilalang farmer scientist at executive director ng Ecoland Environmental and Agricultural Services sa ilalim ng Science Technology Park ng UPLB. Dalubhasa po siya sa agrikultura, environmental science, MBA, maging sa homeopathy at divinity na ginagamit niya sa pagsusulong ng kalusugan at organikong pagsasaka bilang isang yoga pastor. Siya ang founding chairman ng Progressive Socialist Farmers and Consumers Federation at nagsisilbing consultant sa mahalagang ahensya tulad ng Department of Agriculture, Department of Agrarian Reform, at Philippine Coconut Authority. Higit sa lahat, pinamumunuan niya ang Certified Safe Food Movement na naglalayong maghatid ng ligtas, organiko at natural na pagkain sa hapag ng bawat Pilipino. At para po i-present ngayong hapon ang ika-168th episode ng ating programa na pinamagatang Progressive Socialism, strengthening the three Ps of the new development paradigm in the Philippines, which is people, planet, and profits. So let's all welcome ating papanauhin ngayong hapon, Dr. Rafael S. Baroso. Dr. Baroso, welcome po sa aming programa.
Okay,
Pakitapsa
magandang
po naman if nakikita po natin ang presentation ni Sir o kaya po heart react. Ayan po, Sir.
okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning and good day all over the world. And thank you, Mr. Mark Flores, for a very generous introduction. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Lourdes Cruz, focal person of the Future Earth Philippines, the Filipino SDG Action, for inviting me here today. Thanks also to Dr. Ted Mendoza, who nominated me as guest. My talk today will be a little different from the usual presentation. Most of the topics presented to by the brilliant minds of the academe, the scientists, the STEM technologists, entrepreneurs, inventors, were in the fields of biological sciences, the life sciences, the physical sciences, and even engineering, and even the medical sciences. Today, I will present the contributions of social sciences, of the social sciences. Social science naman tayo ngayon to respond to the challenges that we face today. Without much ado, let me start. The title of my talk is Progressive Socialism, Strengthening the Three Ps in the New Development Paradigm in the Philippines: People, Planet, and Profit. Here's the outline of my presentation. My talk is a response to the theme of the program, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I will present today a sustainable and equitable future for the Philippines. We will dive deep into how the so-called triple bottom line of sustainable development, the three Ps, people, planet, and profit, the three pillars, can reshape our economic and social landscape for the better. Is there a need for the Philippines to change in the 21st century? Definitely, we know that we need to change because the Philippine economy has stagnated since 1989. The Filipinos are on the average getting poorer and not happy. Today, the people want prosperity and are clamoring for changes in governance and politics, changes in agriculture and environmental policies. They're clamoring for the eradication of poverty. They're clamoring for jobs, more jobs. They're clamoring for the guarantee of basic necessities so that there will be no person left behind in the world, not only in the Philippines. And we are clamoring for peace and order. Okay, let me ask everybody, since time immemorial, was there ever a formula for economic prosperity? Was there a formula for economic prosperity? Okay. Today, we will be talking about formula for economic prosperity. And they are called in the social sciences, in political science, and in economics, they are called political economies. Now we're talking about political economics today because political economies matter, because they dictate how resources are allocated. Political economies dictate how laws are enforced. Political economies dictate how wealth is distributed among the people. A country's prosperity depends entirely on the interaction and the political structures and economic systems. Now, let us talk about political economy. What is political economy? Political economy is the study of how politics and economics interact and how they create freedom and equality. We're now talking about freedom, that is democracy, and equality. Political economy is the study of production and trade and their relationship with law, governance, and the distribution of national income and wealth. Political economy is the study and the use of how economic theory and methods influence the different social and economic systems, such as the three political economies. The world history has been witness to three conflicting political economies. And these three political economies are capitalism, socialism, and communism. We know that from the 19th century to the 20th century, up to the 21st century, we know that this capitalism, socialism, and communism are still around us. But this political economy dictates the prosperity of people. We know communism is already dead. So we have two fighting, clashing political economy present today. And we will discuss these two in detail today. And we will present case studies of how the capitalist countries who adopted neoliberal capitalism met their downfall, and while countries who adopted socialism are on the rise today. Okay, so there is now the great battle between the three political economies. As I said, communism is dead. The fall of the USSR, or the Soviet Union, brought the end of communism around the world. But there are still communist countries persisting, but they are very, very poor countries because communism never was successful. The death of communism brought only one victor, and that is neoliberal capitalism. Who are the countries having this neoliberal capitalism today? We will discuss that. But neoliberal capitalism is getting irrelevant because they failed to keep the promise of prosperity. Because the goal of neoliberal capitalism is only maximization of profits. Socialism is on the rise in the 21st century because socialism is a people-centered development. But again, neoliberal capitalism and socialism forgot one thing. They are involved in the production and the industrialization and they are striving for people's prosperity, but they forgot one thing. They forgot the planet. Both the development paradigm of socialism and neoliberal capitalism is the production of goods and services without regards to planet Earth. So, today we will discuss how are we going to adopt a political economy that will make Philippines prosperous, the people of the Philippines and the world happy, and we have profit and we share the profit, and we protect planet Earth. Today, we will choose that political economy. And I would like to invite all of those listening today to participate in the public forum on how we are going to formulate, to develop a political economy in the Philippines so that the people are prosperous and the profits or the wealth is shared to all and planet Earth is protected. So before we start with anything else, I learned in Eastern philosophy, in yoga, that whatever you think, you become. What you think, you become. So our educational system should already, by the time you are in the kindergarten, like in Japan, the first three grades is only centered around value formation, discipline, industry, respect for elders, value formation. Likewise, all around the world, we should teach our young people in elementary and in high school what is the ideal scenario for the Philippines. Because what you think, you become. Now, our children will reach the age of 18 and they will vote. These voters in the Philippines will vote for people, but they will never vote for the scenario. They will never vote for the platform. Because we never taught them what is good for the Philippines. How to vote, we never taught them. It was by design that the people should be poor and ignorant. It was developed by design. And that design was neoliberal capitalism. Okay, so what you think you become? What is the ideal scenario in the Philippines? Let's see. Our vision for the future is prosperous people. We would like to eradicate extreme poverty. So prosperous people. We want to have prosperity, but we also want happy people. How do we measure now economic success? Is it by prosperity alone? Or we want happy people? Okay, are we going to measure economic success by gross domestic product, GDP, like the World Bank, nominal GDP, or even gross domestic product per capita? We would like also to measure how happy are the people. And there is one measurement for that. In Bhutan, they measure economic success by the gross national happiness. Okay, what else do we want? The ideal scenario for the Philippines. We want a green environment. We want green industries. We want agroecological agriculture. We want organic agriculture because we want certified safe food. I, as a doctor, has already stopped practicing medicine. I stopped practicing medicine. I am now in what we call in the field of preventive medicine. And I'm using organic agriculture as a means for preventive medicine. Why? because almost all of the ailments that we have today are related to the food we eat, to the chemicals around us, to pollution of the air, of the water, and the food we eat. All our food are coming from what? Chemical agriculture. We are the only, shall we say, we are the only species on planet Earth that poisons our food by spraying it with chemicals and pesticides. So we want to have certified safe food, organic natural foods, to eliminate toxic chemicals in food and environment to prevent lifestyle diseases. What are these lifestyle diseases? These are the diseases caused by chemicals. And they are cancer, kidney problems, lung problems, diabetes, liver problems, obesity, and so on. These are lifestyle diseases. We would like to eliminate lifestyle diseases because we can do it. What else do we want? We want basic necessities guaranteed. Guaranteed purchasing power, food, guaranteed education, guaranteed healthcare, guaranteed housing, so that people growth potential will reach its highest. Okay, we know the Maslow rule, in psychology. Okay, we need to reach the apex of our human potential. We want peace and order. We want full employment. We want vibrant industrial development. We want economic democracy with cooperatives and workers-owned private enterprises. Now, of course, we want moral leadership also. We want honest government officials. We want corruption minimized. And that is good governance. We had so many seminars today, and most of that attending, the seminars that we have, want a parliamentary and federal system of government. Now, a lot of our experts want food nationalism. There is a new book by Dr. Ted Mendoza about food nationalism. We want food sovereignty. Why do we need food sovereignty? Because there is food imperialism. The rich countries have already apportioned themselves, are controlling the supply of food in the world. So the South versus the North. The North financed the agricultural processes all over the world, and so there is food imperialism. So we come up with an idea of food sovereignty. All right, and then there is now a movement of traditional food culture being popularized. And what is this? The slow food movement. Now we have slow food movement festivals all over the world. And what is this slow food movement? It is a reaction against fast food movement, because we have discovered that fast food create lifestyle diseases. Okay, what are these fast food that creates lifestyle diseases? They are McDonald's, of course, the KFC, of course, the Jollibee in the Philippines, etc. These are fast food. Now we need slow food movement. Now we need certified safe food movement. We have now a movement to certify our food as safe. And currently, there's now a House bill submitted by the Congressman Catherine Groseta of the 2nd District of Iloilo. He has submitted House bill, food safety and environment, so that we can have certified safe food in the Philippines, so that everybody is eating safe food so that he can be healthy. And of course, we have a law that is universal health care, so that our universal health care can be attained. And PhilHealth will not be overwhelmed by poor people always getting sick because they are eating chemical food. All right. What do you want? Some more. True democracy, no to creeping authoritarianism, no to fascism. Okay? They're saying that in neoliberal capitalism like America and in the Philippines, now we are now creeping to fascism. Now, we have described a good scenario for the Philippines. Now, let us describe now the Philippines as we see it today. What is the state of the Philippine economy and environment? So all of these bullet points here, we will discuss as we go along. But first, let us discuss what are the causes of the Philippine economic failures. So I Googled AI, ChatGPT, and asked the question, what are the causes of Philippine economic failures? And ChatGPT provided me this information. When I check the references, most of the writers mentioned in the references are professors of the University of the Philippines Economic School, the Virata School. So, these are the causes of Philippine economic failures. It says, while the Philippine economy is not a complete failure, it features a robust business process outsourcing sector and a steady remittances from overseas Filipino workers. So, Philippine economy is not a complete failure because we have BPO and we have overseas Filipino workers. That's all. Because we don't have industries. Okay. Another cause of economic failures, generally, it is widely considered a structural failure relative to its early potential. If we go back to 1920s and 1930s before the Second World War, they say, oh, Manila is the pearl of the Orient. The Philippines is only next to Japan. It's very, very rich. Today, we are being overtaken by Indonesia and Vietnam. And our economy is trapped as a lower middle income economy since 1989, despite the fact that the World Bank is already elevating us and nobody believes that. The primary reasons for this economic stagnation stem from poor policy choices. We will discuss that later. Poor policy choices, weak institutional frameworks, and structural vulnerabilities. What are these? We will discuss it. So here are the causes, detailed causes of why the Philippine economy failed. ChatGPT says, number one, political instability and extractive institution. We have crony capitalism, and crony capitalism, by the way, is a feature of neoliberal capitalism. That is the political economy, neoliberal capitalism. The result is crony capitalism. And what is this crony capitalism? Economically has historically been concentrated in a small group of political and business elites who prioritize profit hoarding and not national development. We know that it's happening in the Philippines. Profit hoarding. Again, that is neoliberal capitalism. That is the political economy. Debt and corruption. We know we have too much debt and too much corruption. Institutional corruption also. Not only the government, the Philippine Senate and the Philippine Congress and the Philippine justice system are corrupt. Policy inconsistency. You know, every president have his own plans and programs. And the plans and programs of the previous president is not continued. And now I'm the president, I will have my own program. Bye-bye na doon sa programa ng past president. That is policy inconsistency. That's why we never developed. Number two, premature deindustrialization. Now, this is a very sad story in the Philippines because when I was working in Singapore, my friend was telling me, "Hey, your president Fidel Ramos, you know, he's saying that he's leapfrogging." I said, "What is leapfrogging?" "Well, I don't know." Now we know the economic leapfrogging of President Fidel Ramos is neoliberal capitalism that is skipping the industrial phase. It is the industrialization, removing the industry, removing industrial policy. And that happened during the time of Corazon Aquino and Fidel Ramos because they started the neoliberal capitalism in the Philippines. And in the United States, it was during Ronald Reagan where the neoliberal capitalism was started. And in the United Kingdom, neoliberal capitalism was started under Margaret Thatcher as Prime Minister. And this was only in the 1970s. So neoliberal capitalism in the UK and in the United States and in the Philippines is only 50 years old. But what happened to this country? We will discuss it later. So because we skip the industrial phase, definitely we have a weak industrial base. Services account for over 60% of the gross domestic product, leaving the country lacking in high-value manufacturing and innovation hubs. Weak industrial base. We don't have so much money, including the funds being given to the state universities like the University of the Philippines is minimal because we don't have funds. That's why we don't have innovation because we don't have manufacturing. How can you innovate when you have no industries? So in the Philippines, even in the United States, in the University of the Philippines College of Engineering, we do not have the high technology to teach because we don't have the funds for it. Okay? Now, this is the very sad phase in our history. You know, during the Spanish period, the Roman Catholic Church controlled all the agricultural lands. The Roman Catholic Church, all the friars were controlled by the Roman Catholic Church. They were called friar lands. You have to lease. The family of Jose Rizal leased to the friars. That's why they have a big estate. Yeah, that includes Los Baños, as we know it, Calamba and Los Baños, up to Bae. All right. These were friar lands leased by the family of Dr. Jose Rizal. When the United States came in, all these prior lands were now controlled by the Americans, and the Americans transferred this land to what? To their crony capitalists. The birth of crony capitalism was started during the distribution of the prior lands to the rich families in the Philippines. That's why you have all the hacienda, because they needed the hacienda for what? Sugar production and coconut production for export to United States. After in 1946, when the Filipino presidents were able to run the Republic of the Philippines, they started dividing the land. These big haciendas are now under CARP. They are now under land reform. So the big haciendas were broken up into small parcels of land, as big as half hectare up to 2 to 3 hectares. And the farmers who will own this, by the way, they will have to pay it back. The farmers who own this will never be able to support a family of 5. in this small land. You see? So land reform failed. So our agriculture failed also as a result of the land reform program. Now we have today. I was a part of a project in Mindoro. We started what we call black rice farming, wherein we consolidate all these small lots of the ARBOs, Agrarian Reform Beneficiaries, what we call in the Department of Agrarian Reform. Yeah, I was a consultant there, and we were very successful because we consolidated small lots into a huge 100 hectare consolidated land holding, which is now managed by cooperative. And we were very successful. And we mechanize it. Okay. And that is how we will solve the agricultural problems. This failed land reform in the future. Consolidation of the small lands into large holdings so that we can have mechanization and we can have economies of scale. Now, the third failure is the consumption-led and remittance trap. The OFW crutch, we depend on the remittances of our OFW. Now, these SM malls, the big malls that we see in urban areas and first-class municipalities, these malls, SM, Robinson, like that, no? It is made possible by the OFW remittances. That's why we call these SM malls as OFW finance malls. Now, we have lack of local productivity. We have no machinery. We have no small, what do we call, agro industry, because we do not have an industrial policy. So in the rural areas, we cannot even manufacturing tractor. You know, we are agricultural country, but we cannot manufacture tractors or even farm implements because we do not have an industrial policy. Of course, we send OFWs abroad, so we have brain drain, and that's very, very rational. Okay, the failure to create high-paying domestic jobs so that the highly skilled, highly trained, and intelligent Filipinos go abroad, and that is called brain drain. Now, we have a high cost of doing business and infrastructure bottlenecks. We have expensive electricity. And this is one of the things that I have been saying, why we have expensive electricity, because after the coup d'etat, what we call EDSA, People's Power Revolution, President Corazon Aquino and President Fidel Ramos privatized all the state assets. So all these state assets now belong to the capitalist cronies. It was distributed to their friends who are capitalist cronies. Now the people of the Philippines do not have any more assets. So all of these Meralco, PLDT, in all of these hydroelectric dams, all of these geothermal energy plants that produces electricity are now owned by oligarchs. And it is all for profit. That's why we have expensive electricity. Okay? Now, we have logistics bottlenecks because we are our archipelagic country. We have high shipping and port fees, you see, and also the urban congestion is creating havoc, okay? And number 5, we have vulnerability to external shocks. We have inflation susceptibility because we depend so much on on OFW remittances and service economy, which is BPO. And of course, due to global warming and climate change, we have severe natural disasters, which wipe out agricultural production and drain public calamity funds. So our agriculture actually is down simply because how many typhoons do we have every year that destroys the farmers' crops? Then we have earthquakes. Then we have volcanic eruptions. So we have natural disasters. All right. We will go into these details, but we have also environmental degradation, and we have many more problems. So this slide tells you our problems in pictorial forms. All right. So we have described already what is the ideal scenario in the Philippines. Then we have discussed already the problems of the Philippines right now. Now, we would like to discuss, is there a way out of this dilemma? And here comes the social sciences, political economy. Okay, we would like to choose the right path to economic prosperity and individual happiness by choosing the right path, meaning choosing the political economy that will make us prosperous in the 21st century. There are only two competing political economies now. The economy of the United States, the economy of United Kingdom, the economy of most European countries versus the economy of China, the economy of Singapore, the economy of Vietnam. So these two political economies are now competing. And who is the winner? Who do you guess is the winner? Okay, now we have four photos here. Neoliberal capitalism is highlighted by President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Starmer. He will be removed as Prime Minister soon. And on the socialist side, we have the face of Xi Jinping of China and the face of Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore. Neoliberal capitalism versus socialism. China and Singapore, very rich. United States and UK are now empires that have fallen. The fall of the Roman Empire, the fall of the British Empire, the fall of the American Empire. Why? Because of they adopted the neoliberal capitalism in the 1970s. They were not like that before. So we will now discuss these competing political economies of the 21st century. Let's first discuss neoliberal capitalism. The neoliberal capitalism of President Trump and of the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. They adopted neoliberal capitalism in 1970s. Today in 2026, it's only 50 years that they have adopted neoliberal capitalism. You see, Great Britain was an empire, and America was also an empire. Now, Great Britain is no more great. And America, as we see, Donald Trump is saying, MAGA, MAGA. And what is MAGA? Make America great again, because America is not great anymore. That's why their mantra now, the Americans are catching up with China, because make America great again. But how did they fail? USA was formerly an American dream with welfare state features. United Kingdom was formerly a democratic socialist country. The Philippines was formerly a market socialist economy. Then we transition to neoliberal capitalism. What are the features of neoliberal capitalist economies? Private ownership of the means of production. So it created all these oligarchs, okay? Competitive free markets, deindustrialization, labor outsourcing, labor export. You know, America transferred their industry to China, to Vietnam, some to the Philippines, some to Malaysia, some to Indonesia, and some to Singapore. So they industrialized. Profit-driven economic production. Neoliberal capitalism is for profit maximization. Financialization of the economy. They adopted a service economy, not an industrial economy already. They're now into service economy. 1% of the population dominate the economy. That is now the reason why there are civil unrest, strikes, and chaos in the United States of America and in Great Britain and in the Philippines, because 1% of the population dominate the economy while the rest are suffering poverty. All right. Now, they have now plutocracy, not democracy. What is plutocracy? What is oligarchy? This is a form of economy wherein the billionaire or oligarchs capture the Senate and the Congress, the parliament and the bureaucracy. The oligarchs now control the economy of the United States of America, of Great Britain, and of the Philippines. And who are these oligarchs? We know who are them. We know them. All right, let's now study socialism versus neoliberal capitalism. What are the countries with socialist economies? Primarily, China, Vietnam, Singapore, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark. They have mixed economy. They have welfare state, but they are not neoliberal capitalists. See, these are very rich countries. And mind you, their goal is what? Shared prosperity. In China is shared prosperity. In Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, basic necessities are guaranteed. In Vietnam, they're coming there. They're rising very fast. In Singapore, we know Singapore is very rich, but it is only a small city-state, Singapore. The Philippines has 115 million Filipinos. Can we feed them all? Can we eradicate extreme poverty? China, by adopting socialism with Chinese characteristics, within 40 years, they were able to elevate 900 million people out of poverty. That's why China is now the most prosperous country in terms of PPP, purchasing power parity, not GDP. It's still the United States who have the biggest nominal GDP. But it is now China who have the highest prosperity when it is measured by PPP. Vietnam. What is the political economy of Vietnam? Vietnam utilizes a socialist-oriented market economy. Similar to China, it has welfare, social welfare policies. Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, well, they are in Europe. They're very different from Asia, right? Okay, so we have China, Vietnam, Singapore in Asia, where we can copy, right? Because they're in Asia. And in ASEAN, we have Singapore and Vietnam, all right? As case studies, right? What are the features of socialist economies? They have mixed economy with strong cooperatives. Vietnam has strong agricultural cooperatives. Mind you, during the time of Ferdinand Edelin Marcos Sr., we had a market socialist economy. You know, during that time, Philippine state owned, controlled key industries and public utilities. It belonged to the people, to the Filipino people. You see, in socialist countries, education, healthcare, and housing are subsidized. They have a robust industrial economy, and extreme poverty is eradicated or minimized. So in socialist countries, we don't. They have already solved two pillars of the sustainable development goals: people and profit, because profit is shared. However, it is not very clear about the planet. So, if we are going to craft now the Philippine formula for economic success to fulfill the sustainable development goals and the triple bottom pillars that we see: people, planet, profit, we have to develop a political economy that will enrich people, that will have prosperity, but prosperity is shared. But we have to consider planet Earth. We have to protect the planet, okay, so that we can have people, planet, and profit. Now, how do we propose? Can we now build a socialism with Philippine characteristic? Because China has socialism with Chinese characteristic. Vietnam has socialism with Vietnam characteristic, and Singapore has socialism with Singapore characteristic. Can we now build a socialism with Philippine characteristic so that we can fulfill the people, planet, profit pillars of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals? I propose a progressive socialism with Philippine characteristics. Now, this is an ongoing process, and I would like to get your opinions afterwards. I will finish this talk very fast so that we can formulate a plan for the progressive socialism with Philippine characteristics. However, I would like to point out some of the features of this. Much property will be held by the public through a democratically elected government, including most major industries, utilities, and transportation system like Singapore and China. Progressive socialism with Philippine characteristics will limit the accumulation of private property. We'll have an extensive public finance and assistance and pension programs. We'll have publicly held properties limited only to productive property. We will have economic democracy or cooperatives, and we will guarantee the basic necessities: healthcare, housing, food, and education. These are all for the people and for the planet. How about for people and profit? How about the planet? Here comes eco-socialism. Progressive socialism with Philippine characteristic with eco-socialism. What is eco-socialism? It is a political ideology that merges socialist principles with green politics, okay, arguing that the systemic pursuit of profit and neoliberal capitalism is the root cause of environmental degradation. It advocates the replacing private ownership and endless growth with democratic planning, social equality, and ecological sustainability. We will promote ecological agriculture and certified safe food in eco-socialism, in PROSOC with Philippine characteristic. Now, we have a concept of democratic ecological planning. Instead of leaving economic planning with decisions in the invisible hand that capitalists, the pre-market and economic proposes the society democratically decide what to produce, how to produce it, how to distribute resources based on the true needs of the people. And all development should have ecological limits. Ecological limits. Because our ecosystem, our ecology cannot have limitations. So we cannot destroy the planet Earth. We cannot abuse. Okay. So we can never have an infinite development program, an infinite use and destruction of planet Earth. So ecological limits. I remember when I was attending a course by Professor Percy Sahise, I took up environmental science. I took up plant ecology. And Dr. Percy Sahise was always reminding the class, we have ecological limits. We can never abuse the ecosystem. Okay, PROSOC and eco-socialism. There is red-green synthesis. Again, the ideology unites Marxism with green philosophy, okay, and the commodification. Eco-socialists advocate for taking all the essential services like energy, water, healthcare, and transportation, and the profit-driven market, and transforming them into public property accessible to all. The PROSOC, progressive socialist economy, should be driven by clean and renewable energy. Do you agree? We should have more geothermal energy. We should have more hydro energy. We should have more solar energy, more wind and wave energy, and we should include nuclear energy. The fourth generation nuclear energy are now very safe. Forget about the first and second generation nuclear power plants. Now we have safe, clean nuclear energy. Okay. Now comes the work of P.R. Sarkar, otherwise known as Sri Anandamurti, the formulator of PROUT, or progressive socialism. P.R. Sarkar has a new philosophy, and it is called neo-humanism. And neo-humanism is actually a philosophy to preserve the dignity of planet Earth and all beings, being a very spiritual person. Okay, neo-human civilization. There should be human dignity. There should be social justice. There will be peace and harmony. There should be ecological balance. There should be spiritual culture. There should be a culture of love, wisdom, and universal brotherhood. And there should be a continuous progress and self-transformation. There should be love of nature, love of animals and plants, and this respect for God's creation. Now, the last plate. It is very, very important as we go in the 21st century because we have now a global, not only Philippines, but the globe. There is now a threat, okay, of artificial intelligence and robotics. How do the progressive socialists with Philippine characteristic try to deal with this artificial intelligence and robotics? All over the world, everybody's afraid of AI and robotics because they say AI and robotics will destroy planet Earth. AI and robotics will destroy all labor. There will be a lot of unemployment. Okay, and AI in the future will control humanity. Right, that is very threatening. Right now in the United States, the Democratic Socialists, Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Mayor Mandani of New York, they are progressive socialists. They are now clamoring that there should be a moratorium of AI and robotics. meritorium of the application of AI and robotics. Why? Because all of this AI and robotics and all of the what we call uh, service providers of the internet belongs to a small group of people in Wall Street. They are all owned by oligarchs like Elon Musk. Elon Musk is not now a trillionaire. Huh? You know how much the nominal GDP of the Philippines is? It's only 600 billion. And do you know how much the assets of Elon Musk now? It's 1 trillion US dollars. The assets of yearly assets of Elon Musk is bigger than the nominal GDP of the yearly GDP of the Philippines. Can you imagine that? All right. So all of this AI and robotics belong to only a small circle of people. All right. Socialists would like to have a moratorium on this because we believe that AI and robotics should belong to the people, and AI and robotics should help humanity, should help people, and not destroy the economy and not destroy the lives of the people in the world. I would like to end my lecture by saying that the progressive socialist movement of the Philippines right now is pushing hard for what we call the Philippine Safe Food Movement, so that all of the food that we eat will become organic or safe, so that we'll become healthy, wealthy, and happy. Thank you very much, and I hope that our listeners will participate in building up what kind of political economy we would like to develop in the Philippines moving forward to the 21st century. Thank you very much, everybody.
Ako, sir, maraming salamat po sa inyong presentation. Medyo nakita ko po talaga na sala-salabat at para pong kumbaga web po ng gagamba yung problemang kinakaharap po ng ating bansa, kaya po madaming nagugutom at madaming naghihirap. So we're now going to open the floor for questions from our panelists and our audiences. So kung ayaw po natin magsalita, we can go ahead and type in po yung ating pong mga questions sa baba. Actually, sir, ang dami kong tanong kanina, pero bawat tanong na nasa isip ko, nakasagot nyo agad sa next slide.
merong food nationalism and I think Dr. Ted Mendoza is around. Can we hear something from Dr. Ted Mendoza?
Sir,
yes, congratulations, Doc Rafi. At
yes.
least,
thank you very much.
Napakinggan ko in full yung advocacy mo, and I'm happy. You did very well, clearly presenting your advocacies. Tayo naman ay nagko-compliment. Mas more on the political side ka, more political economy. Medyo weak points ko yon, more on the technical side naman ako. But yun na nga, nabanggit mo yung tungkol sa food nationalism as a vehicle for food sovereignty, food security, and national security for the country. Malapit nang maging available yung book. We're applying for ISBN and copyright this coming week. Medyo kinonsider namin kasi yung malaking rally ng INC, doon sila eh. And of course, yung ulan na malakas. Okay. Briefly, na-touch mo mga contentious issues. But of course, how to roll back again dun sa mga kagaya ngayon, no? Balita kanina, 100 GOCC na naman ang gustong ipagbili ni BBM. So, ewan ko kung ano yung mga yon. So, baka wala nang matitira talaga sa atin. Ano? Of course, yung nickhood ni Ramos na binabanggit mo kanina, hindi dahil sa industrialization, kundi sa pinagbili niya halos ang mga GOCC natin. At ang pinakamasaklap doon, yung pinrivatize niya yung Iligan Steel Mill. Okay? Napakaganda ng performance noon eh. Nakausap namin yung naging kaibigan ko rin yung president niya, si Rolly Narciso. So, hindi niya maintindihan bakit pinrivatize. Dapat sana, ang sabi niya, ang privatization, ay yung mga naluluging GOCC. Ang Iligan Steel Mill naman ay pinrivatize and napakalaki ng contribution niya nung mga $300 million ang kanilang kinikita, ang earnings for the government. Nung makuha ng Malaysia, silently, alam natin one of our neighbors dito, silent natin yan. So, pinatumba nila. Okay? Nalugi ka agad. Ang nakakuha, India, wala naman palang kapital talaga yung taga-India. But knowing that India is the largest steel manufacturing dito sa part ng Asia, alam nila ng competitor. So briefly, tungkol sa natin na of course, ang isang na-discuss mo yung deficiency natin nga, wala tayong industrial policy na yun din naman ang tinutulak natin ngayon. So, maganda yung mga hangarin natin. So, I hope kung hindi man natin ma-implement lahat, at least masimulan natin. We have to plant the seed of hope for the next, for this generation, young generation. Yung sinabi mo nga, nagsimula sa UK, and then sa US, itong neoliberal capitalism. Pero sa kanila din naman ngayon, nagsisimula itong sinasabi mong social democracy or democratic socialism. Nanalo yung taga New York at sumunod ang isang congressman, 29 years old, na Ethiopian migrant. Tinalo niya yung 30 years congressman, ano bang state yun? I forgot. So, yun, nagsisimula na itong mga ito. At yun na nga, ang isa pa rin equally important issue that must be addressed, itong ang global warming, climate change, na related ngayon sa Super El Nino, na tayo, hindi naman tayo nagko-contribute na malaki, 0.03% lamang, and yet tayo ang third most vulnerable country. So, nando naman ang inaano nila na climate justice. So, what is good siguro na nangyari, ang mga maganda is that hindi tayo nawawalan ng mga proposal, mga ideas, mga possibilities, mga strategies para naman ma-save ang ating kinabukasan, lalo na yung kinabukasan ng ating mga kabataan. Lalo na ako, mag-aanim na yung apo ko, anong pwede kong sabihin sa kanila? Lola, bakit ganito na tayo? So, yun po, congratulations. At least, siguro, my fellow biologists or whatever will agree with me that yun na nga, kailangan natin talaga ng cross-cutting principles. Hindi natin alam lahat, no? Nobody knows everything. So, malaking contribution ng mga nasa social and political science. So, congratulations, Doc Rapi. Yun lang po.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ted Mendoza.
Sir Ted, thank you po sa inyong pagbahagi ng inyong information and suggestion. Maitawid ko lang din po, Dr. Barroso, yung sinabi po about kay Fidel Ramos, wag na po tayo lumayo kasi alam naman po natin kung ano nangyari po sa Fort Bonifacio na ngayon ay BGC na. Alam po natin lahat, sir, dahil po ay military land.
Yes,
Hindi ko
yes.
po alam, sir, kung ano nangyari at ito ay naging BGC. Wag na po tayo lumayo, sir. Ayun na lang po tingnan natin. Anyway, Sir Ike, ano po ating question?
Hello, Doc Rafi.
Yes, yes. Hello, Ike.
So good to see you.
Yes, yes.
Alam mo, graduate ako ng Poli Sci sa UP. Pero ngayon ko lang naintindihan yung political economy in the way that you have presented it, no? Napakalinaw ang ngayon sa akin. I want to join you. I want to help you. Pero sa nakikita ko, Doc, hindi pwedeng tune up ito eh. Kailangan palit makina.
I
Hindi
agree.
lang palit makina, palit sasakyan.
Overhaul.
Hindi, kulang po ang overhaul.
Yes, yes.
Oo,
New vehicle. New vehicle.
New vehicle na.
Okay.
Vehicle na, oo. Ngayon, ang challenge na nakikita ko, marami pa rin ang allergic sa terminology ng socialism. Maraming Pilipino hindi naintindihan yung pagkaiba ng socialism sa communism, no? So I think the challenge is messaging kung paano i-craft yung message, no? In such a way na magiging palatable sa mga Pilipino. The way I see it, no? Branding lang. Branding. You already have the product. Pero branding lang at saka positioning. At saka packaging, of course.
That's right. That's right.
Yun po. Oo. But in the meantime, yung doable would be organic food movement at saka slow food, no?
Yes.
Ngayon ko din lang naintindihan na yung slow food pala direct opposition to fast food.
Yes.
That's something that we can explain and easily understand, no? I'm already working with some advocates, no? Si Ramon Oy Sr., saka Ramon Oy Jr., si Jinjin. They're in that direction also. By the way, yung Pandayan project ni Ramon Sr., meron ng elements ng mini industrialization. Oo, kaya nang gumawa ng traktor at saka mag-repair ng mga traktor, no? So, in the meantime na hindi tayo magkaroon ng bagong bihikulo, marami tayong magagawa na small steps muna. At to end my comment, hindi ko nga alam na medical doctor pala kayo. Ang laki ng potential yung pagpapaliwanag sa mga tao about preventive healthcare in relation to nutrition. Napakalaking messaging yan. And I think that's something we can work on, doable. And it's necessary, na ma-enlighten din ng mga Pilipino na ang problema natin hindi lamang hunger, hindi lamang malnutrition, but it goes all the way to stunting at saka wasting, no? I think we need to bring out the data, Doc.
Yes, that's right.
Oo. Maraming stunted, wasted, hindi alam ng mga Pilipino. And yung day-to-day habit, halimbawa yung pagkain ng instant noodles, no? Normal na sa mga tao. Hindi nila alam ang danger. And the government's not telling them. That's something na mga doables, no? Pagpapaliwanag ng mga ganyang problema. Thank you, Doc Rafi. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you very much, my idol, Ike Sanyeres.
Ito naman. Happy to reconnect. No, let's work together.
Yes, yes, yes.
Tulad din po ni Sir Ike, ngayon lang din po ako nalinawan tungkol sa neoliberal capitalism. So, maitawid ko lang din po yung sinabi ni Sir Ike na kailangan po ng bagong behikulo ng ating bansa. At ito din pong question din po ni Mr. Tejada about naman po sa pagbabago ng konstitusyon ng ating Pilipinas. So, Dr. Barroso, sa inyo pong point of view, is our democracy a failure?
Not 100% because we still have democracy. Okay? Although nagkaroon tayong several coup d'etat before, okay, we have still a chance to have a new constitution. Okay. Ngayon nga they are marching in the streets and they are clamoring tanggalin na daw ang Senate saka Congress kasi wala nang pakinabang eh. So gumawa na lang daw tayo ng parliament. Sinabi din ni Lee Kuan Yew yan eh. Nung bumisita si Lee Kuan Yew in 1989 dito sa Pilipinas, ang sabi niya, nagkamali kayo ng pili ng model kasi ang model nyo, America, United States of America, mag-parliament na lang kayo. Hindi uubra yung Senate at Congress. And now we know it, okay? And then we still have our precious democracy, although for practical purposes, it's not really democracy, it's plutocracy. It is ruled by the oligarchs. However, we still can vote. We still can, we still can demonstrate in the streets. So given this democracy, we can craft a new political economy, and we will have to use either constitutional convention or people's initiative. Meron ng people's initiative ngayon eh. Meron na ring nag-advocate ng constitutional convention. Pero pag may constitutional convention ka, at saka kung meron kang people's initiative, ano naman na ipapalit mo? So we should have already crafted before that constitutional convention and that people's initiative. We have already crafted. Naintindihan na natin. Ano ang ipapalit natin dyan? Di ba, Mark?
Tama po, sir. So, sir, mapunta lang po ako dito sa question po ni Sir Tejada. Kung hindi raw po naman nagbenta si Ramos ng mga lupain at industriya, sa paanong pamamaraan kaya maitatawid ang lugmok na kondisyon ng Pilipinas noon?
I think pinakamagaling na sasagot dyan would be mga economists natin. However, nakita na natin noong binenta niya yung mga government assets, hindi naman tayo yumaman, di ba? Kung tama ang ginawa niya, yumaman sana tayo, di ba? Okay, yung mga hindi nagbenta, nag-privatize, katulad ng Singapore, katulad ng Vietnam, katulad ng China, mga Sweden, mga Scandinavian countries, hindi naman nagbenta ng government assets yan eh. Ba't mayayaman sila? Alright? Yun na lang ang tignan natin. Case study. Pag-aralan natin ang case study ng neoliberal capitalism na nag-privatize at saka mga tinatawag nating socialist countries na they kept their utilities and their tinatawag nating resources with the people and not with the oligarchs. Yun lang masasabi ko.
Kaya nga po, nagtataka din talaga ako kahit nung bata po ako, lagi ko naririnig na ang Pilipinas mayaman, mataba ang lupa, we should focus on agriculture and supply the world with pagkain and produce. Pero nagtataka ako, bakit tayo nakikipagsiksikan na maging kumbaga laborer, tagatanggap ng trabaho ng ibang bansa? Dalhin niyo dito sa amin ang inyong kumpanya. Dito kayo mag-invest, magtayo ka ng building diyan sa BGC. Sir, hindi ko po talaga naiintindihan kasi bata pa lang po ako, tanggap ko na ang Pilipinas ay mayaman ang lupa. Sir, dito po sa lugar namin, sir ha? Sir, I don't know if you are familiar, sir. Sa Parian po sa Calamba. Nung bata po ako, mula po checkpoint going to dyan sa may Jollibee Crossing, lahat po yan ay taniman ng palay. Sir, in a span of 10 or 15 years, sir, lahat yon nawala. So hindi ko naiintindihan bakit anong ginawa natin? Bakit tayo nakikipagsiksikan na maging capitalist when in fact, sir, we are an agricultural country? Ito naman po, sabi naman po ni Marvin Tejada, the biggest contradiction for these are the Philippine laws, particularly private property rights. Just look at the stalled railway construction in the Philippines. Ito sir, isa din tong bagay na napansin ko. Yung mga bansang mayayaman, merong riles. Tayo po, nung nawala ang riles, masyado po tayo naging sa mga kotse. Sa palagay ko, sa malaking tulong sir kung na-maintain natin yung ating mga tren. Sabi rin po niya, legislators for so many decades made sure that their vested business interests are ingrained in Philippine laws that give them leverage for ensuring legalities in law in their favor. Saka sabi din po niya, tayo daw po ngayon ay outsourced service economy. So, meron pa po ba mga questions? Meron po ata rito. Ito po, galing po kay Mr. Antonio Altesa. What is the remedy if possible to apply equally regardless of status in the community, the agrarian reform law during Aquino administration? Thank you, sir. Naku po, na-disconnect po si Sir. Sir Ted, pwede kaya nga atin itong masagot? Ano raw po kaya yung remedy, if possible?
Para complicated nga ang nangyari sa ating bansa eh. Bakit napabayaan yung train system natin na sinimulan ng Espanyol, tapos nung pumasok Amerikano, ginawa niya, nakarating hanggang North Luzon na yon. Nakakalungkot nga. At pagdating kay Diosdado Macapagal ay pinabayaan na. Kasi lalo nilang tinanggap kasi yung dikta nitong natin eh. Alam natin, mangungutang tayo marami sa Japan. So ayaw nilang yung train kasi nga ang gusto nila ipagbili ang kanilang maraming kotse.
Tama
Kasi
po.
car manufacturer sila eh. Kaya ang pinagawa nila, katulad ni Marcos, nangutang para makapagpagawa ng NLEX at SLEX para dumami yung sasakyan na ipagbibili nila. What is ironical, hindi nila tayo pinabayaan gumawa ng ating sariling kotse, ng sarili nating mga makina. Nung i-trace ko naman yan, nag-ugat siya dun sa Belt Trade Act, sa Parity Right Agreement, and then more so, yung DAGS plan na dinidiscuss ko nga sa isa kong paper na tayo ay mag-ano lang ng austerity measures, tayo ay produce ng raw materials, at the same time mag-import tayo ng finished product. So dun sa ngayon lahat ng mga presidente na nag-attempt magmula kay Magsaysay ay hindi nila pinabayaan. Of course, yung mysterious death ni Magsaysay. Magsaysay, by the way, is a mechanical engineer, no? Nung umupo siya, yun ang una niyang ginawa. Gusto niya i-industrialize ang Pilipinas. But then, nung mamatay siya, pinalitan siya ni Garcia. Si Garcia naman, yung Filipino first policy niya, yun ang sinasabi natin na magandang kondisyon ng ating bansa. That was in 1960s. Ngayon, kasi tinapos lang nga yung term ni Magsaysay, so nung magkaroon ng election, ang pinanalo ng Amerika ay si Macapagal. Doon ang inadapt niya debt for development paradigm ng World Bank, IMF. So, yun ang post-colonial nila. Maging agricultural town, maging weak ang economy natin. Okay? Ang malaking problema nga doon kasi wala nga tayong industrial policy, hindi tayo makagawa ng sarili nating makina. Para makabili ka ng isang traktora, kailangan mo ang income sa 50 hectares of sugar land. Yung ganun ba? So, paano? Mano? Hindi, tingnan mo ngayon, antiquated, backward ang ating production system. Marami sa ating mga economies, kailangan daw maging competitive, mag-modernize ang production system natin. Paano mo talo ka palagi at exchange rate of 61 is to $1 natin, yung peso cost of all these machineries, of all these tools ay napakamahal. So pag kinonsider mo yun, talagang hindi ka na magpa-profit. The likes of Ramon Uy Sr., gumagawa sila, pero hindi sila pwedeng makapasok ng large scale kasi nga kulang yung kapital. Marami tayong magagaling na Pilipino, yung paggawa ng mga sasakyan na green vehicle ang sinasabi natin, yung e-vehicle, electric vehicle. Yung Francisco Motors, yung nagmana ng anak niya, he studied physics, he's a physicist. Hindi na sila tinulungan ng gobyerno. Kaya na nila mag-produce yung sa modern jeepney, yung jeepney modernization. Nagkasama kami. Kaya nilang mag-manufacture ng less than 1 million bawat unit. Ang gobyerno naman, pinipilit nila yung 2.8 million na imported. So, siguro yun ang mga, we have the right people, marami tayong magagaling na Pilipino. Fortunately or unfortunately, hindi naman sila tinatangkilik natin. Okay? So, siguro po yun ang ano natin, kagaya nga ng advocacy ni Ike, kailangan magpalit na yata na tayo ng vehicle. So, yun ang the greatest challenge siguro. Paano tayo makakapag-elect by 2028 ng isang presidente na titingnan kung ano talaga ang maganda at makikinig siya. So, in one paper that I've written, I hope i-publish niya ng Inquirer.net, itong UMIC natin ngayon, yung pagpasok natin as by upper middle income class, ang deficiency niyan, paano siya magiging equitable? Okay? Napakadaming mahirap. Ang kulang nga doon, hindi nagiging equitable, walang trickle down effect yung economy natin kasi yung design niya ay para sa mga mayaman talaga eh. So, produkto siya ng sinasabi nga ni kaibigan Rafi na neoliberal ang framework, hindi naman equitable, hindi naman so more for the majority of or all of the Filipinos, yung mga ganon. So, malaking bagay ang forma ng gobyerno na gagamitin natin at kung sino yung mga nasa gobyerno. So, yan lang po, siguro.
Nako sir, sesya na po at merong maingay na aso sa aking background. Pero sir, maihabol ko lang po dito ha. Sir, sa palagay niyo po, ano po kaya ang remedyo dito po sa palpak nating agrarian reform law?
Well, quickly, ang sasabihin ko dyan, yung concept natin ng agrarian reform talagang to begin with, mali siya eh. Kasi Torrens title naging private capital, private property. So, nung ibig sabihin nun, pag nasa iyo na, pwede mong gamitin kung ano man ang gusto mo, yung sa land use conversion, pwede mong ipagbili, etc. Ang modelo dyan, yung Vietnam eh, land stewardship. Sa gobyerno pa rin ang ownership, kasi sa tao pa rin ang ownership, ikaw na stewards of the land, gawin mo siyang productive. Kung hindi mo matutupad yung vision na ganun, kukunin ulit sa iyo ng gobyerno. Of course, yung Egypt, hindi, hybrid ng dalawa. Pero napaka-stricto. Magsisimula ka palang gumalaw sa bukid mo, pag yan ay designated na agricultural production area, nandyan na yung police, sasabihin sa inyo, hindi mo pwedeng gawin yan. Okay? So, kung ano man yung gagawin mo dyan, immediately yung state nandyan na. Kasi meron silang sinusunod na land use. Tayo walang ganun eh. Okay? So, hanggang ngayon, yung National Land Use Act, pangako nga ni BBM, pag naging presidente, ipapasa niya. Natulog na eh. Comatose na. Hindi na rin napag-uusapan ngayon. So, isa yan sa malaking frustration natin with this administration. So, hopefully, meron kayo. 2 years na lang naman ang hinihintay natin. Kaya inisip ko, sinasabi ko sa mga anak ko, sa mga kaibigan ko, 2 taon na lang naman, masusurvive natin yan. So, ang challenge ngayon, this coming 2028 election, we should be able to elect a president na nandun sa qualities na more or less na define ni kaibigang Rafi, Doc Rafi. Thank you.
Opo, sir, tigilan lang po natin ang pag-endorse ng mga politiko na meron pong kinalalaman sa mga invested interest ng mga grupo, ng mga kumpanya, maging ng religion, sir. Kasi sir, ang mas
Hmm.
maganda pong i-endorse po natin sana ay mga magagandang quality, magagandang qualification ng mga dapat iboto, hindi ng isang tao lamang o isang politiko na nakikita natin na eto pwede tayo makinabang kapag nanalo. So sa mga
Hmm.
nakikinig po sa atin ngayong araw, ito nga sabi ni Sir Ted, 2 taon na lang. Sabi din po ni Dr. Barroso, kailangan po natin ng change sa ating politika, sa food politics. Sana mabuksan po yung isip natin na bumoto po tayo ng naaayon sa magandang qualification. Hindi dahil sa udyok lang po o kaya ay impluwensya ng grupo para mapunuan yung mga pangsariling pangangailangan at invested interest nga po tinatawag natin. So, napakaganda po ng topic ngayong araw at masasabi ko lang po na yes sir, ay.
Bahabol ko
Wala
lang.
po.
Yung presentation ni Doc Rafi,
Opo.
sana ma-translate natin yon into a platform. Kasi yung presentation niya, sabi niya, we should stop voting for people. We should now vote for platform.
Tama
So,
po sir.
pero ako, I guess binanggit ko nga na meron akong background sa political science. Hindi platform partido. Kasi ang partido ang dapat na mag-produce ng platform. Sa ibang country kasi, kaya sila matagumpay. Yung partido ang nagpo-produce ng leader. Dito sa atin, yung leader ang nagpo-produce ng partido. Oo. Ang politika dito sa atin parang basketball lang. Parang intercolor lang pagkatapos ng laro, papalit ng jersey. So, para ma-solidify yan, para matupad yung mga gusto natin, dapat strengthen talaga yung party system. At bawat party, mayroon talagang totoong platform na nakatayo din sa ideology. Yung pinresenta ni Doc Rafi, ideology na yun
Mhm.
Kailangan lang ng kaunting polishing kasi marami talagang allergic sa socialism. But
Tama
on
po
the
sir.
contrary, pag sinabi mo, kung halimbawa, wag mong banggitin socialism, banggitin mo Singapore at saka Lee Kuan Yew, okay yung mga tao, di ba? Thank you.
Salamat po, Sir Ike. So, tama po yung sinabi ni Sir Ike. Tama na po na tayo ay bumoto ng isang partido na siya magsusulong ng tama pong kandidato at presidente ng ating bansa at hindi po yung mga individual na grupo na kapag nanalo ang kanilang i-endorso, malamang maggagantihan lang po silang dalawa. Alam niyo na po ang ibig ko sabihin. Ito po, pahabol po ni Mr. Tejada. Seems that our politics is governed by who had the money, who have political machinery, and who have the popular numbers. Totoo naman po yan. So, isa po napakaganda at eye-opening pong episode ang ating po nasaksihan sa araw na ito. At masasabi ko lang po na ang tunay na pagsulong ng bansa ay hindi nasusukat sa yaman ng iilan, kundi sa pagkapantay-pantay ng tao, kaligtasan ng ating planeta, at mga taong distribusyon ng kita. At ito po ang hamon at pangako ng progresibong sosyalismo para sa bagong Pilipinas. So with that, maraming salamat po sa pagsama po sa amin ngayong hapon and we enjoy the rest of the weekend. Bye for now.